Hello and welcome to the Keyboard Chronicles, a podcast for keyboard players. I'm your host, David Holloway, and I'm thrilled as always to be here with you. I'm really excited this episode to introduce Mr. Grant Larcom. Now, for those who do follow our YouTube channel closely, we've actually had the privilege of doing a rig tour with Grant, and we'll talk about that in the show coming up anyway. But Grant is one of the roster of keyboard players or pianists with Postmodern Jukebox, and we talk lots about them as well. And it's a thrill talking to Grant, who's someone sort of early in his career and starting to find some success. He has some great insights on a whole range of topics, the touring life, his learning experiences through his upbringing, and lots more. So, yeah, I think you'll enjoy this one a great deal. I hope you do. And I'll talk to you after the show. Evening, Grant. I can't thank you enough for joining us. And this is a little bit of a strange one in that you're the very first guest, and this is our 102nd episode, where I've had the pleasure of meeting you face-to-face before we do the in-depth interview.
Oh, awesome. Okay. I didn't even realize that. That's
yes.
Great.
So for the sake of our listeners and viewers, I had the pleasure of seeing Grant play live in my hometown a number of months ago with Postmodern Jukebox, and we're obviously going to talk about that in a little while. But, Grant, I thought we'd start just with how your year's been outside of Postmodern Jukebox. It sounds like you've been a busy man and that you have your hands in lots of different musical activities to,
Sure.
I suppose, to make a living.
So, let's see. I moved to Nashville, coming up right on 2 years now, to kind of pursue piano music full time. And when I first got here, I landed a lobby pianist job at one of the nicest hotels downtown, right across from the Bridgestone Arena, which is where the Nashville hockey team plays, and lots of major acts, come and go there. So I was doing that for a while, just a few nights a week, and that kind of paid the bills. Got to meet a lot of people, lots of foot traffic, going in and out that really nice hotel. So let's see, I did that for a while. I was just picking up random gigs here and there because the one thing everybody told me in Nashville, you have to network. And anyway, that was tough for me because I by nature, I'm kind of a more shy person, more introverted. But I really tried to make a point in moving here to take any opportunity that was thrown my way, because that's pretty much the only way you can advance in this industry, and it's extremely competitive here. So I just took, some of the worst gigs I've ever done in my life. Some I regret, but it was all in this effort to just show people, okay, I'm here. I think I'm a good, keyboard player, organ player. And that was my whole goal in moving here. So lots of networking, did the lobby piano thing for a while. I got involved with Fiverr.com, if you've ever heard of that.
I have, yeah.
Freelance website. So that was just another additional source of income. So it was, playing at this hotel, random gigs, doing all the Fiverr stuff, weddings, lots of wedding mashup songs. One thing that got popular in the last couple of years because of TikTok, all these brides would see a piano player play Canon in D and then kind of end it and then go into some pretty version of a pop song, some, classical-fied version of a pop song. So lots of that stuff just here and there to diversify the income streams, because that's kind of what you have to do as a freelancer, and I'm sure you understand that. So.
Hey, look, you've opened some beautiful cans of worms there, Grant. I'm not sure which one to explore first, and I want to explore them all. So let's start with Fiverr.com. So I assume that was creating original music, or whether it was theme tunes or jingles, or what was the work on Fiverr?
So a lot of what I started out doing was doing ghost tracks for people. So essentially, I got connected with this producer in Japan, and we did multiple albums, like just cover albums. So we did like 3 Beatles piano cover albums, and he would pay me X amount per song, and I could pop them out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And so we started forming a good business relationship there. So lots of that stuff. So I have dozens and dozens, probably hundreds of at this point of tracks on Spotify and elsewhere that are by me, but you won't see my name unfortunately. So it was a lot of that kind of stuff, which was great. It was great cash rolling in, and that was the first time where I really felt like, okay, I can make a living just doing this. Because back home where I'm from, that's not really an option. Yeah. So started out doing a lot of that kind of stuff. Like I said before, the wedding tracks, that kind of stuff really took off. Lots of wedding mashups and stuff. Did some session work, remote session work, things like that. So that pretty much encapsulates all of the Fiverr work. But
no, that's great. And I just, I love the whole ghost thing. I hadn't realized that was a thing on Fiverr. So that's great. And as you know, Fiverr has its challenges as far as they're not great at passing on 100% of their fees. And I don't mean that in an ethical way, but they're quite hefty, the fees.
I think at this point it's 20% of the total work order, whatever. Plus, they take 20%, and then you're kind of hoping that people tip on top of that, and so that was a big thing for me. And I would just really strove to be really fast, really efficient. Under promise and over deliver is kind of how I think about that kind of work, and I would get repeat customers constantly through Fiverr. So that actually turned out to be a great way to make some income. And I started noticing my profile kind of climbing up the charts, so I think it may be not at this point because I've kind of paused my freelance Fiverr work, but at one point you could just search piano and I was like the third or fourth person. So, that was a lot of organic traffic coming my way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's a great one. That's one we've not had people mention before. And then I have to ask about the lobby pianist job. So that it is obviously a brilliant way to play a lot of music over a long period of time. Just what were your recollections of that period of time, and what did you learn, and even any amusing interactions you've had over that time?
Sure. I really loved that gig. I'll start off by saying that I kind of considered it almost just like a paid practice session because it was a very relaxing thing. The management didn't really care what I played as long as it wasn't overly bombastic and people were enjoying it, as long as it was something enjoyable for guests to listen to. So I would do all kinds of Michael Jackson, Nirvana, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and put my own spin on things, and just kind of it was a fun chance for me to just experiment in the music and just kind of open things up and take some more risks and stuff, because in an environment like that, it wasn't necessarily a piano bar. It was more just there's a piano player there. It wasn't a space that people were sitting and actively listening, but more in the background. So that kind of let me feel comfortable in doing a lot of experimentation, which I think that made me a better player. I would get requests all the time, so I started building that repertoire. It was really a great experience for me overall. And the pay was great. The tips were great. And again, you meet so many people. So
absolutely. Look, I'd love a gig like that. And so, and I can't resist asking you said that you did some early gigs, and I understand you probably won't want to name venues or people, but you mentioned that there were some things that you regretted in the broadest non-identifying sense. What were some of those gigs that you now regret taking?
Well, like I said, when I first moved, when you don't know anybody, you don't know who to avoid. And also you don't really have great expectations of how much money you should be making for whatever amount of work. How far should I be driving? What gear should I be providing? It's really hard to gauge, is this really worth it when you're trying to just build a name? So I really can't go into great detail, but everybody's taking a gig that just really didn't end up being worth it.
Yeah.
And it may or may not make you a better person or player in the end, but now I'm wiser in the idea that I know what my time is worth at this point. And I know what to avoid and what sounds sketchy, So that was kind of the thing, picking out, sorting the weeds,
Yes.
so to speak. So
No,
that was
great.
my experience with that. But
No.
all in the effort of, just putting my name in the back of people's heads, because Nashville especially, and I'm sure this is for any, large city, people's recommendation is kind of everything. And so that was another thing for me. I wanted to be recommended by people I'd played with, and that just leads to more and more and more gigs. So
That's right. No, great perspective. And I think we've all been there as far as let's just call them rip-off gigs to be broad. Going back to your musical upbringing, I think you mentioned, did you say you did classical piano for, was it 16, 17, 18 years? What was the...
I started classical training when I was 5 years old.
Wow.
And there was a point, there was maybe a year and a half where I was without a teacher, but pretty much 5 years old until I got my degree in May of 2021. It was, about 18 years straight of, fairly intense classical training. I didn't always practice like I should have, and I probably could be a better player had I, logged my practice hours a little more accurately, but we've all been there, I guess.
And I've got to ask, Grant, did that length of time doing classical music, did it ignite a passion or squash a passion? I know we have other guests where just the pure length of time in one genre, and you either decide you love it, or you're maybe, as you've already said about jazz and other things,
Sure.
it sort of guided you to others. Was that the case for you?
These days, I find myself I've kind of backed up from the classical rep. Not to say I ever got burnt out on it. Maybe at one point in college, I sort of started to feel like, okay, why am I doing this stuff? Am I going to be doing this music, in the real world, so to speak? But now I find myself kind of going back to some of that classical rep, because I realized that's what gives you the chops. That's what makes you understand and appreciate music, I feel like, and appreciate your instrument and what it's capable of. I'm doing less of the classical rep these days and leaning way harder into the jazz and pop stuff, but I know what gave me chops. So I don't resent classical music or anything. I know a lot of people hit it so hard in school that they probably never touched it or never touched their instrument again. That's not really the case for me, just because I think I genuinely just love everything there is about piano. But
no, that's really well put. So, like you've mentioned jazz, and we'll definitely talk about other aspects of your career. But as I mentioned at the start of the show, I've had the pleasure of seeing you play live with Postmodern Jukebox, and you certainly demonstrate the whole range of skills across genres that you need to with that outfit. So the romantic in me says, Grant, that you're playing in the lobby bar. Scott Bradley walks in and goes, I want that guy as part of my roster for Postmodern Jukebox. But I'm sure that's not what happened. Well, I don't know. So tell us how you got that gig.
That'd definitely be a cooler story, I guess. So here's the story. It's not super exciting, but I didn't realize this, but Scott actually lives in Nashville now. He lives a little bit north of town. And I didn't know this moving here. And, Scott Bradley's always been one of my piano idols, just modern day stride piano. He's the guy. So anyway, first off, I didn't realize that. But when I first moved to Nashville, I joined all these Facebook groups for musicians, as you do, again, in the spirit of networking. And I was just scrolling one day. This was March of 2022. So March of last year. I was just scrolling on Facebook, and it happened to pop up. It said, casting call for Postmodern Jukebox seeking Nashville-based musicians. And I saw that, and my heart skipped a beat a little, and I was like, oh, I had no idea that, anybody to do with Postmodern Jukebox was in Nashville. But Scott had moved there, and it's kind of now the hub. It's where we rehearse before tours now. So anyway, the requirements were you just had to send in like a 1-minute video, kind of just showcasing whatever your talent is. And so I just made a really nice looking video playing in a couple different styles, some jazz ballads and stuff, attempting to do the stride. I'm no Scott Bradley when it comes to stride, but I think I'm decent with it. So made a video, submitted that, and then it was a wait. It was hope they get back to me. And so I waited and waited and waited. And then, let's see, it was July of last year. I don't know what I was doing, but somebody messaged me through my personal website, and it happened to be one of PMJ's other piano players, Jesse Elder. And he messaged me and said, "Hey man, we sent you an email 2 weeks ago." And he said, "Did you see it?" And I was like, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, we sent you a tour offer." And I said, "No, I didn't see that." And then he resent it. But anyway, so what had happened, it went straight to my spam.
Junk mail, yeah.
Yeah, straight to the junk mail. And I just didn't see it.
Wow.
So luckily, Jesse thought to reach out to me, another way, and kind of warned me. And so then I pulled up the email, and anyway, they offered me the, let's see, it was a 6-week USA fall of last year. And, that was my first ever tour, with anything like like professional. And man, it was, I remember sitting in my car after I signed the contract and sent it in, and I called my mom and dad and girlfriend. I was just sitting in my car crying, like, because I was like, this is my break, and this is what I moved here for, and I'll never forget that moment. That was a pretty crazy thing for me. Like it felt like a dream. Yeah. Because PMJ was a band that I was just a fan of and really loved. And I even remember back in high school, I was watching a PMJ video and I told myself, I said, I'm going to tour with this band one day. I clearly remember saying that to myself. And then it's funny how things just connect and happen sometimes when you kind of manifest those thoughts and energy and stuff. And I don't know. It came back and it worked out. So anyway, I did that tour, and I've done 4 tours total with them since it's coming up on, it's a little past a year since I first completed that first tour. And now I've got to do, Australia, New Zealand, and all over the US and Canada.
And it sounds, Grant, like you were perfectly prepared, just given, like you've talked about your lobby pianist role, doing the ghost tracks. Like, I can't think of someone better prepared after 15 to 20 years of classical training, loving jazz, doing all that, essentially music on demand. And then obviously PMJ is such an amazing outfit. So what was your woodshedding process like for that first tour? How much notice did you have, and what was that like for you?
Yeah, so they ended up sending me a Dropbox of music a couple weeks before. Whatever, because the arrangements we use are kind of a little on the looser side. Yeah. It's a lot of, filling in, using your own common sense to fill the part. But man, I can't tell you how nervous I was, though, that first time looking at those charts and just, how do I do this the right way? Because I didn't know exactly what the right way was, but I practiced and did a lot of listening to the YouTube videos and stuff. I'd done a lot of listening, lot of listening and playing along. But still, that didn't make me any less nervous for that first day of rehearsal. And then they kind of helped me follow the mold a little bit more, because up until that point, I've been pretty much a solo piano player. And, that's a different thing than playing in a group or ensemble. It's so different. And learning what range of the keyboard to avoid, and just understanding how to fit the part,
That's right.
And so I needed a little bit of help with that, but they steered me in the right direction. And I think at this point, it's just made me such a more well-rounded player, being with this group and playing with such world-class musicians, So
yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to talk about some of those musicians in a sec. But do you recall what the first live show was like? Right? Where was it? I'm sure you can probably tell me. Where was it? And what's your recollections of your very first show with PMJ?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember we it was it was some odd routing, but we drove overnight to I think it was Tallahassee, Florida, wherever FSU is, Florida State University. I believe that's Tallahassee, and we played on their campus. And I remember the first night on the tour bus, ever being on a tour bus, and just so much nervous energy and stuff. Oh gosh. And I remember waking up, and then suddenly you're kind of across the country. And first off, I thought that was weird. You sleep and then you're somewhere else. Gosh, it was so much nervous energy. I knew I was prepared, but you never really feel fully prepared for a gig like that, especially your first time. And I just remember walking out onto the stage and seeing all the empty seats, just looking, and then like, this is going to be full, and it's going to be this many people. Yeah, just so many nerves, just something new like that is always, always kind of like that. But that first show went so well, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then it playing for that many people, from that first show, it just made me realize, like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is what I'm meant to do on the earth. This is why I'm here, is to entertain and just to feel the energy, and people pay money to come see me. It's like that's absurd, So, but anyway, lots of nervous energy, but pretty soon, you realize, okay, I'm in safe hands with these guys. They've got my back, and everybody was so welcoming and kind, and just because they had all been in my shoes at one point, but most of them were kind of vets, when I had joined in. But it was just a welcoming environment.
Great.
It was great. It was great.
Yeah.
Just an amazing experience, all the way through. So
no, that's amazing. And because it's not just the musical preparation, and correct me if I'm wrong, Grant, and maybe lesser for you sitting behind the piano or the piano shell, but there's lots of choreography, and I don't mean highly formalized dance, although for some of the singers there's obviously some of that as well, but the choreography of the night must take initially some getting used to it, because it's an amazing stage experience, not just a musical experience.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Yeah, because PMJ, is more of a, it's more like, it feels like a Broadway,
Exactly.
musical experience. So yeah, there's lots of stuff going on, lots of change outs, and, suddenly there's a tap dancer, and then there's a singer, and then there's three singers, and then we bow, but then we're not really done, and we come back, it's a lot of choreography, lots of staging and stuff. But that stuff kind of really just gets kind of baked in pretty quickly. I think you just kind of learn that flow of the show, and then by the end of it, it feels like nothing.
Yeah.
It goes by so quick too. That first night didn't, but pretty soon after that, it just flies by. It flies by, and you get so comfortable, and like, you just live for those moments on the stage,
No, great perspective. And for those our listeners and viewers that were that aren't aware of PMJ at all, which would be rare, it's just an amazing, as Grant mentioned, more like a Broadway Radio City Music Hall. It's just absolutely amazing. But even for those that do know PMJ, from their amazing videos, this is a whole different experience live, because you are definitely getting a lot more. I'm going to use the word joy. Not that the videos aren't brilliant, but there's a lot more live joy and warmth, and the vibe of it's incredible. To the extent, and this is just an anecdote from my perspective, Grant, one of the most overplayed songs, in my opinion, and I understand it's a beautiful song, but it just annoys me, is Hallelujah. But going to your gig and watch it's Effie, isn't it? Watch Effie sing that song. I now love that song. She's literally turned around my love for a song based on that one song. So, yeah, I do recommend to people, don't judge the videos, as brilliant as they are, as the only thing you'll get when you go to a PMJ live show. Yeah.
Yeah, the videos are great. The arrangements are so good. Scott's a brilliant arranger. But, sometimes recorded music can just come across as kind of flat,
Yeah.
And that's not the band's fault or the technician's fault or anything. That's just, it's really hard to portray that the dynamic nature of live music, right? And so a PMJ live show, such a different experience. It's so engaging, and it's more of a two-way communication type thing. We feed off the energy of the audience big time. We're not just up there in our own worlds. We're listening and trying to make sure the audience is having a great time, because that makes sure that we have a good time. Because, when an audience is dead, it's not a great feeling at all. So it's a pretty different experience going to see us live versus just the YouTube videos, which are amazing. But the live show is just so much more personal, much warmer, so high energy. And I think if you like the videos, you'll love seeing PMJ live.
That's right.
You'll love it. So
no, I agree. I can endorse that. And so let's a regular question we ask, Grant, and it's probably the perfect time to ask you, is I'm sure things have gone wrong at the odd times. Is there a memorable train wreck that's happened for you, whether with PMJ or something else? It could be anything, but just, whatever comes to mind.
Our shows tend to be pretty tight, but, things happen. People get sick, and that's something that we deal with for the most part, is when a show changes because of illness, and then somebody has to learn somebody else's song and kind of carry that extra weight. But it's hard to pick any train wrecks, because these people are such professionals. They do the work, So there's not anything big coming to mind. There's always small things, and it's the nature of being a musician to just criticize yourself super hard. Meanwhile, nobody else in the world notices. That's just kind of how we are, I think. So there's definitely things that I've kind of fudged on, but I'm sure nobody knew. So I hate to just not answer that.
No, that's good.
There's really, I'm sure before I was there, over the course of 10 years, I'm sure something crazy has happened, but at least I haven't been there for any major train wrecks.
That's right.
So far, so cross my fingers. But
yes, long may it stay the same. Yes, that's right. No, that's great. And then talking about keyboards themselves, obviously in PMJ, and we've done the rig tour, and we'll link to that. It is quite a standard, because it is so piano driven. From memory, it's pretty much 100% piano for you, isn't it?
Yeah. Like 99% of the time, PMJ is going to be strictly piano. On some shows, I think I threw in like a whirly patch for like one thing, maybe for band solos or something. I may have done a Rhodes or whirly patch or something just to give some texture. But for the most part, we're not trying to trick the audience that it's a real piano, but that is like that keeps it more authentic, keeping the piano sound, even though it is like, normally a really nice keyboard hidden away in there, but that's the idea. So
no, absolutely. And I interested in any highlights across, and it doesn't have to be the Australian New Zealand tour, just any particular tour highlights where you've had a guest jump up, or just a show that's gone just for some reason particularly well, or stuff like that. Or is it all a highlight? Maybe it's all a highlight.
Man, well, first off, traveling that far around the world for me is just, you kind of look back and it all just turns into one blur because it's so fast paced and high energy and you're doing so many things. Gosh, I do remember, I think it was our show in Melbourne.
Oh, yeah.
I think that was a sold out show, and it was just like, for me, it kind of clicked that we have a worldwide audience that is passionate about this, and I mean, we can fill giant venues across the world. Like it, I do remember that first show in Australia, and it was just such amazing energy, and for me at least, that moment just felt surreal to see and know that there's fans everywhere, and another thing. So I didn't get to participate in this, but PMJ actually did a jazz festival in Indonesia, like 10,000 people that knew PMJ. So again, just adding to that point, it's a worldwide fan base, and it's just, it's just so amazing that with modern technology and the internet, everything can make it anywhere. And that's right. It's just so surreal. It's so cool to know that we have fans everywhere.
No, that's great. Yeah, agree totally. And I mean, you mentioned Jesse before, the touring behemoth that PMJ is. I assume there'd be are there 3 or 4 piano players, and you sort of just all tour when you can?
Yeah. So right now, I think there's probably 4 or 5 different guys on, all kind of rotating the piano chair, and I think we just, band management is kind of this like mysterious thing that we don't question. So we don't know when we're going to be asked to do something. We just take it when we're asked, But yeah, so right now it's, let's see, probably 4 or 5 different guys just rotating out, right. and it's PMJ is so interesting in that aspect too. People aren't buying tickets, for the band personnel. It's the arrangements of music, which is a very wholesome way to think about, indulging in live music. It's a more authentic thing, I think, when, people aren't there for this person or this person, but
that's right.
They want to hear the music. And I think that's so cool.
It is incredibly cool.
Whether or not I'm actually touring or not, I think it's cool. So.
Yeah, it is. No, it absolutely is. And this is my poor research. Does Scott himself still go out and play some gigs? I'm sure he does. I've not.
So, he's not actively touring, but he does. He kind of bebops his way around to some really big shows, or very special shows, or especially shows close to Nashville.
Yeah,
for instance, PMJ's on a U.S. tour right now that I'm not on. I'm here at home tuning pianos mostly, but they played. It's called Pelham, Tennessee, about an hour south of Nashville, and it's called the Caverns. Is the venue? It's an underground. It's a cave system that they've kind of retrofit a stage in, and so PMJ played there, and I got to see all my friends. And Scott came, and he likes to do this mashup thing on the piano when he joins a show. So he'll call out to the audience and say, name your favorite bands, whatever, and he'll pick artists and then do a mashup on the fly, which he's a master of. So but he's not actively touring.
No,
but he does make some special appearances, and people always go crazy for that. So.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, that's great. And so do you, and I understand you may not be able to say, but do you have any tours booked with PMJ at the moment, or just you will hear a month or 2 months before? Or
Yeah, I'm not currently booked for anything, but the word is they're starting to snag some people for this upcoming 10-year touring anniversary. That's going to be going through 2024. So we're going to be hitting all over, Europe and the UK.
That's great.
All over the USA. So I'm really hoping, I would love to do a Europe tour because that's something I haven't gotten to do yet. But at this moment, I can say I'm not currently booked for anything, but
who knows?
I hope that changes, and I'm sure it will at some point. But I'll let everybody. I'll always make a big Facebook announcement like I'm back on the road.
That's right.
So there will be some announcement at some point. But again, the management is a mystery, and we just kind of say, okay, we'll do this.
Right. No, that's reasonable. And
Sure.
and so, I mean, you mentioned the piano tuning and you're doing all that. So, but from a musical and a playing viewpoint, how do you keep yourself busy, interested, occupied keeping those fingers, I suppose? Are you a big practicer, or you just do some pickup gigs between, or?
So, it's funny. I really don't play here in Nashville too often at all. I found a great gig here doing piano tuning. So I'm now a piano technician when I'm home. And the company I work with, Seal Keyworks, out of Franklin, Tennessee, amazing company who took me in and gave me free training and sent me out into the field. And they're just so flexible with me. So I can literally say, hey, I'm going to be gone for 2 months. And they say, great. And then I can come home and still have a job, which isn't.
That's great.
I don't know how many companies would be that flexible and and that understanding of the chaos of a touring musician's schedule, whatever. But I've got my Nord Stage 3 here at home, and I fairly frequently upload TikToks and the occasional YouTube video. And you may have seen earlier, I have my overhead camera set up, and I use the software Chordy that, it's a MIDI analyzer in real time that you can show the staff and a keyboard showing exactly what I'm playing and chord analysis and all that. So I really do enjoy making those videos, but I don't approach the piano at this point like I'm practicing. It's more just enjoyment.
Yeah.
And if there's something I want to get better at, I still don't consider that practicing. It's just kind of grinding on something, but it's not practice. It's just honing in on my craft, and that's how I feel about it. So
good perspective, love it. And one of our other standard questions, Grant, is tagging a keyboard player. So is there someone out there that you admire, inspired by, that you would love to hear more about their life story?
So Eric Barfield, he runs a website called the Patch Foundry, where he makes amazing patches for sale for tons of different keyboard models. He does these really cool packs, like it's called the Cover Band Pack, and it's just he literally makes song specific patches with multi-page patches to get you through these songs as a cover band keyboard player. So Eric Barfield, check him out. He's amazing. He lives here in Nashville. Haven't personally met him, but we keep up on social media. But
great. I love it. Great suggestion.
Yeah.
And then the dreaded Desert Island Disc question.
Sure. Let's see. Okay. So number one for me, Nirvana Nevermind.
Yep.
So, it may sound weird coming from a classically trained pianist, but I remember being 12 or 13 years old and hearing Nirvana for the first time. And before then, I don't think I realized what music I liked. And that clicked with me. I loved the 90s grunge alt scene. So that's one. A lot of people hate on Nirvana. I love Nirvana. Now let's see. See, I'm so bad with album names. But let's see. Alice in Chains.
Oh, yep.
It's whichever one Man in the Box is on. It's going to be Facelift. Alice in Chains. Amazing album. Now let's see. So now I've got to throw in an Oscar Peterson one. Because he's my guy, Oscar Peterson. He has like 1 million albums. It's so unfair.
Very prolific.
Can I just say everything Oscar Peterson has ever made?
That's
Oscar Peterson all the way. Okay, Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be Pendulum.
Yep.
Pendulum, CCR. I love CCR so much.
Yeah.
I should throw more like jazz in, but I'm really like a 90s guy at heart.
Nothing wrong with that.
Which is crazy. I was born in 99, but like that's like my music. And then finally, let's see here. It's going to be Stone Temple Pilots.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to be Core.
There you
Core,
go.
Stone Temple Pilots. So those are my five.
No,
a lot of
effort.
the 90s alt rock stuff, but anything Oscar Peterson, any jazz. I mean, any classical. I eat it all up. So I've got a pretty big range of musical tastes, I'd say. But
yeah, no, that's brilliant. No, good picks.
I think those could get me through some boredom on a deserted island. So.
And I always get excited. You've picked, I think, of those 5, 4 of them haven't been picked before.
Okay.
And because we have a Spotify playlist with all our guest album selections, so it's coming up to 4,000 songs. So from a selfish viewpoint, I love variety because I love listening to that playlist.
That's amazing. So, okay, yeah. Is there? I've got to get a link to that.
Yeah, I'll put a link to it. Yeah, so it's just
that's
if you look
cool.
for Keyboard Chronicles guest, it'll come up. But yeah, it's so that's great. Thanks, Grant. And then our last but not least question, the quick fire 10. So 10 short and sharp answers to some things. So first album you ever heard?
First album I ever heard. Well, first one I remember hearing is going to be Nirvana, Nevermind.
Yeah, there you go. Yep, that makes sense. Your most important pre-gig ritual, what do you do to feel like you're ready to go on stage?
Oh, so especially in PMJ, we huddle in a circle and somebody is randomly appointed to give a pep talk. So always a good, friendship pep talk, happy, let's do this, guys. Yeah.
That's great. Love it. Favorite size performance venue? Are you a intimate bar, a theater, a small arena? What floats your boat?
I love them all. I love a good intimate performance, but when we played at the Paramount in Seattle and 3,500 people, that's more my speed, I think. Yeah. That feels great.
No, great. I think I know the answer to this one. Transpose button or adjust on the fly?
Oh, man. Look, it's okay to use the transpose button. I'm not against that. If something's happening crazy on the fly, just use the transpose button. Don't risk it.
Yeah, gotcha. Love it. Favorite gig you've ever done, if that's possible?
Wow. Ryman Auditorium here in Nashville. That was that was my third or fourth gig with PMJ.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Such a special venue.
It is, absolutely. Favorite city you've ever played, if that's possible?
Seattle's close, but I'll probably go to Melbourne.
Oh, yeah, you did mention. Yeah, great.
That was an amazing city, amazing energy.
Yeah, one of the best cities in the world, I'd agree. Name an artist you've not worked with that you'd love to work with.
I'd love to work with Haley Reinhart and Casey Abrams, upright bass player. But great. Haley Reinhart, used to be with PMJ, but she's kind of pretty big on her own now. So I don't know if that'll happen, but fingers crossed. Yeah,
there you go. Love it. Favorite music documentary or movie?
Okay, Whiplash is cool, but there's a really great documentary just about Oscar Peterson's life. Don't remember what it's called, but if you just search Oscar Peterson documentary, good, and you really learn a lot about his upbringing.
Yes. No, great one. And name one thing you'd like to see invented that would make your life as a keyboard player easier.
There's got to be some way, a case that's that's easy to roll, that can carry your keyboard, a music stand, your keyboard stand, a laptop, all your accessories, all in one thing. Because too often I'm rolling a keyboard, carrying 14 things in this hand, and stuff just starts falling. Easier way to transport keyboard stuff.
Yeah, love it. And that's actually original. You're the first person to suggest that. So that's great. Love it. And last but not least, your favorite non-musical activity or hobby. What keeps you sane outside of music?
That's a great question. I actually do a lot of photography. I have a lot of creative hobbies. So I love graphic design and web design, but photography is another one of my great passions. And that's when I get to tour, I always have a camera on me, and you'll see me out in the city taking pictures. And that's kind of, I started a dedicated photography page when I was in Australia, actually, on this last run. Grant's Perspective on Instagram. So, yeah.
Brilliant. No, love it. Grant, I cannot thank you enough. You're barely getting started. I think you've got another 40 or 50 years of amazing creative output to come across
Thank
all
you.
of those things. So you can't thank you enough, particularly on a Saturday night, as we always
Sure.
say. Much appreciated. And we'll definitely keep in touch.
Yeah, please. It was really nice to talk to you again. Yeah, it was really nice meeting you when you came out to that one gig. Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to watching this later on.
And there we have it. I hope you enjoyed that catch up with Grant. He's a highly humble guy with amazing chops. I've witnessed them live. I know I sound a bit like a fanboy for Postmodern Jukebox, but legitimately so. As we talk about during the show, if you do have the chance to see them in your area, do make the time. They are so much more than watching a cover band, believe me. Amazing stuff. So yeah, huge thanks to Grant again for giving us his time, and we look forward to keeping in touch. We'll let you go in a second. Just a quick shout out to our gold and silver supporters. Tammy Catcher from Tammy's Musical Stew. Thank you as always, Tammy. The musicplayer.com forums, Dave and the team there, we've been proudly members for over 20 years now. Yeah, 22 coming up to, wow. So do check out the musicplayer.com forums if you're a keyboard player and like hanging out with like-minded individuals. The Radio Grande YouTube channel, if you like funk reimaginings. So just think of Postmodern Jukebox with even more funk, if that's possible. Radio Grande are the place to check out. Mike at midnightmastering.com for really high quality mixing and mastering services from a great guy who I've had the pleasure of knowing for close to 30 years. Highly recommend Mike's work. And last but not any means least, Brother Paul Brown from the Waterboys. He's been a long-term supporter. Brother Paul's out there kicking goals left, right and centre and getting fitter by the day as well, if that's possible. I don't know how he could be any fitter than he already is. But yeah, do check out the Waterboys touring near you soon. So again, a huge thank you to you for listening. And we will be back in a fortnight or so. Until then, keep on playing.